Cirque du Soleil, Hyatt Hotels, Singapore Airlines, American Express. When you think of these companies, we think of good customer service. It comes to mind. And when those folks need help, they go to Holly Stiel to help them with their customer service. Holly's an expert in customer service, and she also wrote the book on hotel concierge called...
It's called The Art and Science of the Hotel Concierge.
And she's here to talk to us today about what small business can learn from luxury hotels.
Great.
So thanks for being here.
Thank you. Pleasure.
So you're here to talk to us about customer service, and you have been in customer service for quite a while. You started at the Hyatt in San Francisco, and you were, as I understand it, you're the person who's responsible for putting the concierge desk in the hotel lobby. Is that correct?
Yes, actually it is. And I was really
that's
in
a
the
big
right place.
thing.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a big thing, but I was in the right place at the right time, Reese, I got to tell you. Because it was when concierge were just starting in America. They'd been in Europe for many, many years, but they were just starting in the United States. And the place that they were really beginning to organize in America was in San Francisco. There's a guy at the Fairmont named Tom Wolfe, and he's still there. Amazing. And so he was starting to put concierge, like a whole group of concierge together, and I was working at the Hyatt on Union Square at the time, and there were no female concierge then anywhere in the world. And so because I happened to be in San Francisco at the time when they were organizing the U.S. chapter, I became the very first female member of the International Concierge Association. So I was in the right place at the right time. It wasn't so much, you know.
And you
really
recently won some big award from them.
I did. I just got a Lifetime Achievement Award, which is really, really sweet. And so they called it the Year of Holly for the contributions that I made to the profession, because I've written several books on the concierge. I've also written books on service that are based on thinking like a concierge. And my most recent project is called How to Get the Best Out of Your Hotel Concierge from A to Z, which is for the public.
Oh,
for
okay.
the traveling public to actually work with a concierge. So they were extremely sweet, the Professional Concierge Association, and said that I've really made such a contribution that they wanted to give me a Lifetime Achievement Award. So I'm really honored by that.
Wow. And you've branched out into doing customer service for all kinds of companies.
Oh, yeah.
Audi and...
Right. Well, absolutely, because what happened was when I started in the late 70s, there were no concierge in America at all. And then when I finally wrote my first book, and after close to 17 years at the Hyatt, I left, there was a few jobs to be a concierge consultant, but I have to say that it wasn't any way that I could actually make a living. So I had to go, okay, I need to regroup this thing. And I thought, well, what could other businesses learn from a hotel concierge, which is really the ultimate in service? So I began teaching people how to think and act like a world-class concierge, and all kinds of businesses, yes, from Audi to NASCAR was really one of my favorite places that I ever worked, and banks and airlines and restaurants. And so I've done all sorts of things to adapt this whole idea, and I really credit the whole concierge world for teaching me what it really means to be a service provider from your heart and to give from a place that really touches people and theirs.
Okay, and that's what we're going to talk about, is how to bring that kind of customer service mindset into small business.
Exactly. Great, thank you.
So what are some of the things that small businesses can learn from luxury hotels?
Well, if you think about a luxury hotel, why would you go there, right? You would go there to create a memory for yourself, to create an experience that you would like to treasure. And so what luxury hotels understand is that their job is to get into the psyche of the travelers so that they create a really deep memory, and then they go back and talk to people about it. Because actually, Reese, there's been research that says if people couldn't talk about their trips, they probably wouldn't take them. And so there is this whole idea of creating a memory and designing an experience for someone that they will then repeat and talk about and want to repeat themselves. And of course, if it's a business trip, then you want to make that experience so comfortable and easy for someone that they wouldn't even think about going anywhere else. So it's really about understanding the idea of loyalty. And that how you create loyalty is by designing an experience. And you really have to pay attention to all of the details of that experience in order to do that consistently, no matter who is delivering that service. So any business can learn from hospitality on a variety of levels, and I'm excited to be here to talk to you about that very thing today.
Okay, terrific. So when you talk about the details, what sort of details are we talking about?
Well, it's about thinking through the entire experience. So what happens is that what the hospitality industry understands is they're not in the transaction business, that they're in the relationship business. And if you're in a relationship business as opposed to transaction, then it changes how you do that. It changes the way that you speak to someone. It changes the way that you interact on every single level. So when you think about the details, like imagine, I mean, I'll just use a concierge example for right now. So imagine that you're planning a trip for someone. So you could take that idea of planning a trip and think about that from the idea of selling a widget. Okay. It doesn't make any difference because there has to be a beginning, a middle, and an end to that experience of whatever that is. But what I teach is I ask people to actually close their eyes and to envision the spaces in between. And if you can envision the spaces in between, those are the details that are important. So I'll give you an example. So let's say you're taking a trip to a European small town, okay? So what I want you to understand is that, sure, you can get the ticket, you can book a tour, you can take care of you can make a reservation, you can take care of all the transactions. But what really needs to be understood is that when you get there, there's going to be cobblestones, and if there's cobblestones, you need to be wearing the right footwear. And if you're going to be taking a boat, then you need to envision what happens. Are there like 4 other boats there? Which boat do you take? What exact times are they? What happens? Do you buy the ticket on the boat? Do you get the ticket when you're getting off the boat? Do you have to make an advance reservation? All of those things that take the stress away from the experience is what hospitality, good people who do this, really understand. So let's just say you're buying a widget. Whatever it is that you're doing, you want to have no stress. You want to make it easy for someone. And one of the details for that is knowing what questions to ask and what to think about in order to make that experience stress-free.
Okay. So it sounds like these are the things that, as you make it stress-free, it also gives you an opportunity to build some sort of relationship.
Absolutely, because, okay, the biggest thing is to know that you have to ask questions. And so in order to really be good at creating an experience, there's a word I made up actually. I call it curiosity. So it's a combination of being curious, which is something that is very difficult to teach. You're kind of either curious or you're not. Right. I don't know how to teach curiosity, but I do know that you need to hire that, because people who aren't curious can't really be great at creating experiences for people because they don't care. Right. They aren't curious about that. So there's a concept of curiosity, and then you have to combine that with questioning and actually really listening.
What's one thing that small businesses can really do, like right now, to improve their customer service, or at least something that they should start thinking about?
Well, the most important thing that any business can do is actually have written standards. In order for people to behave the way that you actually want them to behave, you need to tell them what that is. And so written standards are actually non-negotiable. They are something that you absolutely have to have. And if you're listening to this and you don't have written standards, don't feel bad, because you're in good company. Most people haven't taken the time to write these out, where in the hospitality industry, we have. So we know that if you're telling someone how to get to the restroom, you don't use it with a pointed finger, you use an open hand. And the reason that you want that is so that you can deliver consistent service. And you can't really have consistency if you don't have standards. And you can't have quality without consistency. And so it's just the most important thing. So I really recommend that. But one step before that, I would take the time, especially this is small business, you just talk to each other, have a conversation. What are my values? What are my true values here? Because if we look at anyone's behavior, you'll find out what they value, because your behavior reflects exactly what you value. And so you got to start with the values, and from the values you create the standards. And then from the standards, what you need to do is actually hold people accountable for them, because if you bother to do values and standards and there's no accountability, don't bother.
Right.
Yeah.
So what are some things that small businesses can do to create a memorable customer service?
Okay, well, great question, because I think that we have to go and look at what do businesses that have memorable customer service actually do. Now, I have to tell you, I get called all the time. People say, oh, we want to have service just like the Four Seasons. That's what we want. We want service like the Four Seasons. And I said, great, okay, I can help you with that. But when I tell you what it takes to do that, you might just want to have Four Seasons kind of service without Frankie Valli, okay? Because it's relentless. You have to believe that this is what you want, and believe in this so much that you talk about it every single day. Every day. Not once a week you have a little meeting about it. Not once a month. You don't have the employee of the month and a once a month little meeting with everybody. No, this is an ongoing conversation that happens every single day. And you celebrate your wins. And you become a culture of storytelling around all of these great service stories. And so first, what you want to do is you want to be able to answer 5 questions.
Okay.
And the first question is, what do you want me to do? What is it? What do you want me to do? Second one is
For the that's the employee asking.
Yeah, every employee should know the answers to these 5 questions. Okay. Every employee deserves to know the answers. I don't care if you work for United Airlines or you work for a little tiny company that has 5 employees. Every employee needs to know the answers to these. What is it that you want me to do? And that's why I always talk about standards. What do you want me to do? We got to write it down. Second, why do you want me to do that? Because nobody will ever change their behavior unless they understand the why. And also, another thing about changing behavior is most people are much more bought into their ideas than yours. So we need to do this collaboratively. So what do you want me to do? Why do you want me to do this? And then, how do you want me to do it? And that actually requires training.
Okay.
Some training of people so that they know. I mean, it'd be really nice to know how to do problem solving because you just knew. But most people don't, so you got to teach people how to do these things. And then, how do you want me to do it? And then, for today, more important than ever, and especially for young people, they want to know how they're doing. And then they want to know, people want to know, how am I going to keep on getting better? How am I going to continually improve? And I believe that those are important things. So it's, what do you want me to do? Why do you want me to do it? How do you want me to do it? How do I know how I'm doing? And how are you going to continually help me to improve? Those are very deceptive questions because we think, well, that's just simple, right? But they're simply deceptive because most people in an organization, whether it's 5 people or 500, they don't answer them the same way or they don't know the answer. And so I believe that it behooves the owner of the business, the manager, whoever that is, to make sure that these questions are answered. What you want to do to create standards, just to really be helpful here, you want to look at what the experience is. So there's usually, I'll just tell you, in a hotel, because that's what we're doing, right, kind of like a hotel as a metaphor, but you could do that in any business. So if you look at a hotel, what happens? Well, there's a welcome, right? People get there. Now, in any business, there's a welcome. The welcome in many businesses begins at the website.
Right.
So how welcoming is that? What are the touch points? Because the thing that you want to understand is what touches your customer. Where is the touch point? And the thing is, you probably can't do that yourself. You probably have to bring in a relative or a friend or something to understand your business and write down all the touch points.
That's because we're too close to it.
We're too close to it. We don't see it. We don't, it's kind of like if you're trying to motivate yourself and you put up some inspirational quote, above your computer. After about 3 days, you no longer see it.
Right.
So you don't even see it. So let's say you're pull into your parking structure, and there's a big sign that says, no parking here, or must wear shoes, or whatever it says. How does it impact a customer? What is the touch point?
Right.
Okay, so in order to look at your entire experience, You look at the touch points and then you break it down. So in a hotel, like I said, there's a welcome. So it starts at the website, then it's with a telephone call, maybe that's to reservations or to get information. So there's some sort of, a segue in.
Right.
And then they arrive, if it's a business where actually people arrive.
First, yeah.
Yeah. Or there's just the welcomes on
Right.
the phone. Okay. What happens there? Then they're at your business. So whether, like again, in a hotel, there's the stay. If they're doing a sale or whatever they're doing at your business. A meal, they're there. So everything goes well. What happens then? What are your standards for everything going well? But then what can happen during the visit is something can go wrong. So what are your standards for how do you handle the problem solving? What do you do? So that everybody's consistent. So that if something yucky happens and you happen to be the person who's handling it, but you don't handle it very well because you don't know what to do. And then, someone else who had better parenting than you, let's say, handles it better. Mm-hmm. That's your problem. You're not consistent. No one knows what to do. So there's problem solving as part of standards. And then the last part is they leave. So there's a farewell or a follow-up of some sort. What are you going to do? So, and then again, standards, there's two other pieces to standards. Telephone. And I think today actually you should have some netiquette standards as well.
Right.
Yeah. And then the other one is grooming.
Right.
So if that's an issue in your company, if people are actually face-to-face, so you do need to have standards for grooming, standards for phone and email, and then the arrival, during the visit, problem solving, the farewell. Done. Simple. Simple. Under each of those, just a few things go. A few things in each category. If someone is upset for any reason, whether it is our fault or not, we apologize sincerely. Right? That's a standard. It's an overarching standard. I'm not talking about you put the knife on the right and the fork on the left. That's called a standard operating procedure.
Right.
But
so we can get very detailed for small businesses.
Right.
But at some level, stepping back, there's some basics,
Yeah.
like just saying apologizing.
Yes. Yeah. Or we don't tell people no. We give them alternatives. That's a standard. So that everybody knows, even though the answer is no, we don't ever say the words. I have a girlfriend who calls it, she says, we don't know anything around here. And understanding that, I actually ask people to make a list. Here's a great little tip. Make a list for a week, 10 days, of every single thing that you said no to a customer about. Everything. You said no, write it down. Mm-hmm. And then have a meeting and take a look at those. What are you saying no about? Because you will find that there will be places that you're thinking, why am I saying no about that? Whose agenda is this? If I really want to have luxury experience, then I don't say no. I give someone an alternative, and if I am saying no, I better have a really good reason for doing that. Not because it's easier for me to say no.
Right. Well, I know, for instance, for me, if I say no in my business, oftentimes people are asking me to do something that I'm either not the best person for them to do it, or we just don't do that service. We don't have the equipment or whatever. Right. So I always, I do try to find someone to refer them to. So I'm not just saying no. I'm saying no, but where you can go is this place. So I'm sure the people who I'm referring to feel good about it, but also the people who my customers feel like
right.
I've even if they're not my customers, they feel like, oh well, I couldn't do it, so I passed it along. So at least they leave they get off the phone with me with a good feeling that I tried to help.
Absolutely. And what you just did, Reese, was develop the most important thing that any business can do, but especially small business, is establish trust. And that is something that is priceless, as they say, because you want to do business with people that you trust. And if someone just says, yes, when they're really unable to do it, then you can't trust them, and they won't do a good job. But if someone just says no without giving you an alternative, you're left with this kind of yucky, empty feeling around it. And then you don't want to do business with them at all because they don't make you feel good. And what we understand in hospitality is that what it's all about is how you feel. It's really about your feelings. And when service equals feelings, and we'll take it to another level there, which is it's about energy. Now, what really, okay, where people can understand this concept really easily is in a restaurant that has a buzz.
Right.
So that wording is perfectly normal. You just say, yeah, that restaurant really had a vibe or a buzz, right? It's just energy. That's creating a level of energy that people feel something when they come into your business. And that's what you want to create on the phone, when they enter your business, all of it. You want to be able, see why service is difficult, really, is that you can't measure it 100%, because you can't really wrap your arms around it and tie it in a bow. Like it doesn't, if you're in a service industry, you're in any kind of service business. I mean, you know my business is called Thank You Very Much Incorporated, and I always say if you're not in the thank you business, you're probably not in business. But what the issue is that if you're just in a transaction business and someone gives you money, they get what it is that they gave you the money for. But when you're in a business like the hospitality business, where people are buying an experience and a memory, you're trying to deliver high-level service, you can't put that in a bag and say, here's your bag of service. Thank you very much for buying this. And then they can't go to their friends and go, wow, look at this, see my service?
Right.
It's right here in this bag, isn't it pretty? We don't have that as an option. So we need to pay attention to all of those details that create the experience that uplifts people so that they're enthusiastic and feel good. Because that's what people really want. They want to be heard and seen and noticed, and that somebody cares about me. And that's what we attempt to do in hospitality. And I'm not, everyone doesn't do it, and everyone doesn't do it all the time, and it does, but because it's relentless.
Right.
And people who do it really, really well, like Four Seasons, who really one of the best at it, and Mandarin, and some of the really high-end places. And I think that they have every morning they have stand-up meetings, every shift.
Wow.
Every shift, every day. And they talk about, let's say, a standard of the day. And they do celebration. Talk to us about a story that happened. Talk to us about something that went wrong. How did you handle it? And they'll celebrate it if people handled it well, so that they really acknowledge people for what they're doing right, and not just, well, you didn't do this, and you didn't do this, and you didn't do this.
Right.
Yeah.
Easier to catch those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But the service, this service concept. I know a guy who's a plumber, and he has differentiated himself by being. I mean, when you think of him, you don't even think of him as a plumber. He's
By the way,
completely clean.
Right.
And he comes in and he's very articulate and explains the whole process. He wants no surprises, like you were talking about. And it's just, I think the service that he delivers makes him stand out. It's not, when he leaves, people don't talk about how he got the toilet fixed.
Right.
They talk about what a great guy he was and how pleasant he was to deal with. So it completely elevates that out of just being a service to more of a relationship. And
so let me ask you a question. Why do you think when he leaves that people talk about how great he was?
He's very clear on the business end. He has a procedure, and he also always puts things on his shoes before he comes in, and he washes his truck every night. Your question was, why do people talk about him? And it's because it's so unusual, I think.
Oh, that's interesting. I think that...
For his business.
Right. Well, I think that what happens, really, is that he made you feel important. That's what he did. See, because what he did was, it wasn't about him, it was about you. So it was your house, so he wanted to make sure that he didn't trick dirt into your house. It was respectful. And that is one of the values.
And it wasn't about the toilet.
Right, yeah, because that's the given. If you walk into a hotel room, do you go, oh, wow, this bathtub is clean? You don't do that. You think, of course, the bathtub's going to be clean. Of course the plumber's going to fix the toilet. That's what they do.
Right.
Right? And so you don't go, wow, this restaurant had food. It isn't that. It's so beyond. The business is just, it's like, what business are you in? And that's why I say, if you're not in the thank you business, you're not in business. Because if you're in the thank you business, then you're focusing on something different than what the function of the business is. Because we didn't know how to do the job.
Right.
The job is just the function. But the rest of it, creating the experience, developing loyalty, respecting people, really listening to them, that's what's rare. Not just in his business, for plumbers, for anybody. What you felt was heard and seen and respected and cared for. And that's what people want to do. If you could do that piece of it, that deeper piece, the business stuff gets handled. And if there's a problem, much easier. Because if let's say, that plumber had an issue, if the toilet all of a sudden started leaking, okay, you'd be a lot nicer to that guy about the issue than to someone who didn't make you feel important, cared for, served, respected, honored, all those things. That's what he's focusing on. And that is the big trick. And that's the difference. But we get so into the function that we can't get into the artistry of it. And when you're in a service business and an experience business, that's where the fun is. And that's where the relationships are created. And the relationships then create the loyalty. And it's all about little things, like moment by moment by moment. We don't get bitten by elephants, we get bitten by mosquitoes, right? And so it's this little moment and this little moment and this little moment that creates the whole experience. So
yeah. So from a business owner's point of view, in terms of what they can handle, I know myself. You've talked about parenting and good parenting, and oftentimes when it came to, like, I remember early on there was a telephone. I found some videos on telephone customer service, and I thought I ought to show these. I had 2 people working for it. I thought, well, we should do this, and I thought, they're going to look at me and go, what is this? I know how to answer the telephone, right? So you almost feel in a small situation like you're stepping in as the parent, and that's not an appropriate really role for you. But how does one overcome this with the feeling that they should already know this stuff?
Aha, that's exactly the point. That's exactly why you need it. However, the best thing
or
to
do
do,
you like you're telling them something that
except
they're going to look at you and
they're
go,
going to tell you.
Yeah.
That's how you do it, especially in a small business. It's like, okay, we're going to make a structure for this. So you tell me, what do you think the best way to answer the phone would be? And the way to get to that is you could start with, or just for the phone, this is like, I'll just give you like the whole process, right? I would start with, okay, tell me what bugs the hell out of you about phone manner.
When you call somebody up.
That's right. Take it away from them. What bugs you? Okay, it bugs these people put me on hold and don't, tell me where they're transferring me, or they transfer me and they never told the person what my problem was. And then I got to repeat it all over again. The recording bugs the hell out of me. The people who don't tell you their name or their department or where they're calling really bug. Let them tell you. It's like, okay, great. So how do we then do this so that we don't bug anybody? What would be the way that you think that we should do this? They have to tell you, because if you're trying to do a behavior change, like I said, people are bought into their own ideas, not yours. So you have them do it, especially in a small business. You could do that. So I think that's a really great way to start. And one thing to really be aware of and be wary of is sometimes people like to just act like brown nosers and tell you what they think that you want to hear. So that doesn't work. I was once doing a workshop for a resort, and it was a big spa thing. And I said, okay, how do you want to do the farewell? And they said, well, when people leave, we want to say, thank you for visiting paradise. And I was like, really? That's what you want to say? Do you really want to say that? I don't think you want to say that, but you really do. They kept saying, yes, we want to say that. So I said, okay, fine, if you really want to say that. So then, of course, I leave, and they go, we don't want to say that. And it's like, why did you tell me that? You don't really want to do that. Or I was working for a huge football thing for their box office, a huge football team. And I said, What do you want to say to people when they walk up to the window? I want to say, you know, like, hey, welcome to the, you don't have time. There's 750,000 people waiting to get in this stadium, right? Are you actually going to say that? Like, be real.
Right.
What's real for you?
The real is the big thing. You know, I forget which burger joint it was, right? You'd go up and they'd go, how may we serve you today? It's like, first of all, the person wasn't feeling it, right?
Right, exactly.
Right? It's just the words.
Right.
Second of all, you know, it's like, look, I'm just here to order some fast food.
Right.
You know, how may I serve you? I mean, just, you know,
I know.
What do you want?
Or, you know, hi.
Hi.
Hi. I mean, it's just, you know, it's like, you know, when you go up in a restaurant, they say, are you, you know, you have reservations? That's not a greeting. Do you have reservations? It's like, that is not a greeting.
Right.
Do you know, so it's really about what are people really willing to do? What will they do? What makes sense to do? You know, calling up and saying, oh, it's, you know, it's a beautiful day here in Phoenix. How may I serve you? People don't speak like that.
Right.
We want to be real. And you do want to say where you're calling,
Right.
what your name is, may I help you, that sort of thing. We do want to use certain words where we might want to say, you know, I'm really sorry that happened. It's not our intention to upset you. There are certain things that you can teach, but to be robotized, that's the, you know, there's one company that always says, certainly, that would be my pleasure. No, certainly, that would be my pleasure. And you want to say, excuse me, would you kill my mother-in-law? And they just go, you know, certainly, that would be my pleasure. Because they never heard you.
Right.
Because they're just on automatic.
Right.
So you really want to avoid that. So standards don't mean that.
Right. So I like your idea of going to people and saying, well, how do you react to this? And getting them to solve the problem.
Yes.
And you can guide them a bit to say, look, this is what I think, you know, what do you think of that? But if you get the buy-in and it's coming from them.
From them. Their idea.
Right. So probably some of the most important things really are telephone greetings, in-person greetings. But also, what else is there that people don't get oftentimes?
Willingness. Willingness. And that is another one of those, like curiosity, that's really kind of difficult to teach. But the idea of willingness, like you're willing to do it. I'll tell you a great story that just happened. It was a few weeks ago. It was at Urban Outfitters in Marin. And I went to the Urban Outfitters and I was looking to buy a T-shirt that I saw in a magazine. And so I go up to this young woman who's there and I said, do you have this T-shirt? And she looks and she said, I think we're out of it. And she was very darling and nice and everything. Now that could have been the end of it and I still could have felt okay.
Right.
But instead she said, let me look. So she started looking in all the shelves and she couldn't find it. She said, I'm gonna look in the back. And then she goes in the back to look. And then she comes out and she goes, I can't find it. She says, let me call a couple other stores. She calls a couple other stores. Then she says, I can't find it. You know, it might be online. And I'm sitting there like this. Seriously?
For a T-shirt?
For a T-shirt? And, you know, and so many of my clients will complain and say things like, oh, young people today, they don't really, you know, they're really entitled and all that kind of stuff. This girl's maybe 20 years old. And she is now going online. And then she says to me, oh, wow, it's on sale. I can get it for you on sale. It's half price. I'll have it in your house in 3 days. Will that work? And I was just blown away. And I said, all right, we need to talk. So why do you do your job like this? What's the deal? Well, you could have just told me you didn't have it. Why did you go so out of your way to do this? And she said to me, because if I didn't, I would just be wasting my time. I'm like, of course that's right. Of course that's right. But she knew that. So my next question was, did you have good parenting? And she said, yes. But what she understood was that by not just saying no, but by going the extra place, by really doing that, it wasn't about me. It was about her and how she was going to spend her day and how she was going to receive value from where she was in that moment and doing that job in that time in her life. And what she understood was that this is a holistic process. And when we just think about the customer only, we miss that piece. And that's the problem, because service comes through people. It doesn't come just because I told you to do it that way. We have to choose it, and it comes from inside out and not just outside in. And so it has to be about the employee and about the environment that the employee is working in. as well as what the customer experience is, because they have to want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
They have to choose to do it and want to do it.
You said something earlier about the thank you, and that you want to be in the thank you business, and my first reaction was, oh, so you want to encourage, you want to make sure that you're always saying thank you to your customers, and you said no, it's about well, I'll let you.
Well, it's about your customers saying thank you to you,
right?
And because it may be very nice if you were saying thank you to your customers, that would be great, but there's a whole piece of how do we teach customers how to behave, and I don't know how to do that. I'd like to, but customers are going to behave however they behave, because the only person's behavior that we're responsible for is ours. So what we need to do is create our behavior in such a way that it creates the thank yous from our customer. Now, will everyone say thank you? No. Most people will, though.
Right. Well, and you were saying that it's a hard science to measure, but this seems to me like somewhat of a measurement.
Yes.
At least. Maybe it's not scientific measurement, but it's at least you get a sense as to, I hadn't, you don't think about how many thank yous do I get a day.
Yeah. Well, that was when I wrote a book. It's called The Neon Signs of Service, and my very first neon sign that I created was "Thank you very much," and it was the idea that every time I would hear the word "thank you," a little neon sign would go off in my brain and go, "That's it." And I started making notes about how many times I was hearing "thank you" all day. Now, if I wasn't hearing it very often, then I had to look in the mirror and go, what am I doing that I'm not creating thank yous? Because I'm in the service business. I'm in the thank you business. Forget whatever business you're in. At that point, I was in the hotel business. It doesn't matter. If my clients today aren't saying thank you, then I'm doing something wrong. And I need to then reassess what it is I'm doing, because you can actually start counting how many times you're hearing thank you. Because a lot of times people think that the customer service department is not a department. It's a culture. We're in the service business.
Right.
That's, sometimes my clients will go, wow, that's really, you can do that, or you'll be willing to do it. I go, hello, I teach service.
Right.
I'm happy to do it. And it's really a matter of being willing to look at yourself first, and then your customer experience, and also look at your employees. How much are you thanking them if you're in a small business? Are you so busy in the business that you're only telling people what they did wrong and not the things that they did right? Mm-hmm. So, and how to continue to be better if they couldn't do it well the first time.
Right. So that's that whole process that you talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Let's shift gears a little bit, and especially since we're talking about what businesses can learn from the hospitality industry. I think one of the things that I remember clearly, and I'll name names because it was so long ago that people probably aren't there anymore, but they went to the Ritz-Carlton Hotel I was set there, and the service was so good that I felt attacked. It's like everywhere I turned, there was somebody willing to hand me a towel or and I just felt overwhelmed. And I remember joking, boy, I hope they don't follow me into the bathroom. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it was overbearing.
Yes.
And how do you avoid that thing where you want to serve but you don't want to overdo it? I mean, are people does that happen all the time? Or?
Well, it's such a good point, because the Ritz has come to understand that particular style no longer was serving them or the particular clients anymore.
Oh, you were in it. You know about this.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. Sure. However, having said that, you have to really hand it to the Ritz they changed our industry. They really did, because they were the first people to come out saying we're ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. And in order to deliver on that promise, they structured it to a place that became uncomfortable both for the guest as well as the service provider. And they have eased off on that quite a bit, and they have changed the style, but really giving them their props for not only changing our industry, but for really showing people a way to make service a priority And so I think that sometimes when you're a pioneer, you might go a little bit over the edge.
What was I feeling? What was it about it?
You were feeling scripted.
Ah.
You were feeling that, I think,
Yes.
that you were feeling the insincerity of it, that it wasn't about you. See, it's the opposite of the plumber.
Right.
That with the plumber was about you feeling cared for and respected and honored. And when people are focusing on that, then the feeling of the customer is, wow, they care about me.
Right.
It's really good. When you are just feeling that you are the recipient of a checklist, I must smile, I must say, do you want help out with that? I must say your name 6 times. I must do this. And we're just going off of a checklist, and we're not coming from any place that has anything to do with, I care about you, I care about your experience.
Right.
I'm here to make your experience a good one.
Right.
Because, okay.
Well, I felt like it's not, I'm just a guy staying at the hotel.
Right.
I'm not royalty. I'm not, I'm not the president.
Well, I think what you bring up is a really good point, because all right, service is gray, so there aren't too many black and white things about it, Reese. So you, as just a guy staying at the hotel, may be a guy who was just a guy who'd be like, wow, I'm getting all this treatment. For you, it was uncomfortable.
Right.
Okay, it was too much, it was uncomfortable, it was like almost silly.
Other people must have reveled in it.
Right, so there is no one way, which is also why it's kind of difficult. Because that's why we need to care about you. Right. Because I need to, as a great service provider, now I'm getting into a little bit of minutia and some detail, which is where I think it gets seriously interesting. Uh-huh. Okay, I mean, writing standards is one thing. You got to have them. But then once you do that, you can get in the artistry of it, because the really big thing is that now I am a professional service provider. I got to read you. I got to know where your comfort level is. Mm-hmm. And I can observe that in you, and I can ask you some questions, and I can know what would make him comfortable. And what would make you comfortable may not be exactly the same thing that would make someone else comfortable. But I'm a pro, because like the plumber, I know how to fix the toilet.
Right.
Now it becomes all about this other stuff.
Right.
Right? I know how to do the job. So now what do? Okay, you just want to be left alone a little bit. You want to know that somebody's there if you need them, but you don't want them hovering over you. Right. And your body language is going to tell people that.
Right.
And you are just the way, just even like your voice tone, your body, like, huh? All of that. If I'm an astute service provider, I'm going to understand that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change my behavior based on yours. And then I'm a real pro. And then I'm also still interested in this job that is relentless and repetitious. Because most jobs in service are incredibly repetitious. So where am I going to stay amused?
Right.
I'm going to stay amused by looking at everybody who's an individual, and I'm going to now change my behavior based on yours, and I'm going to just ask you a few closed questions and leave you alone.
Right. So it's that, and maybe perhaps communicating that to our employees that this is where you can refine this.
Absolutely.
That gives them something to work on.
Yeah.
Instead of just the rote.
The rote's horrible. You don't want the rote, and standards don't necessarily create the rote. That they do is what they create consistency. So we still want you to be you.
Right.
And yet there are some things that we definitely want you to do. And so, like, I'm actually uncomfortable. I mean, okay, this is hysterical. I had this job in Mexico once, and I had a butler assigned to me. Now, you're not used to having a butler, so it's a little uncomfortable. But not for that long. I got used to it pretty quickly. But I didn't know what to do with the butler, right? So it's like one of my great moments of my career, this butler thing, because it was so funny. I was like, what am I going to do with him? And I kind of wanted to go away. So I said I was going for a walk, and then I was going to go down to the pool, so could he meet me at the pool with my fins and my goggles? Okay, fine. So fine. I leave him with the fins and the goggles, and I go for my walk, and then I go to the pool. And there is the butler, standing at the pool with my fins and my goggles on a platter, holding them like this. I was hysterical. I was laughing. I was like, oh Wow, that is so crazy, right? So I was like, so I just like, wow, fins on a plate. That is so nutty. So yeah, I mean, there's levels of this, right? There's just levels of all of it, right? So, and I just laughed. And then by the time I was leaving, I was kind of like, oh, excuse me, but could you back up my computer? I got used to it. It doesn't take, that's the thing about luxury. It doesn't take very long to get used to it. And the expectation, if you're a small business and you want to behave like a luxury business, there's a high expectation. So I think you ought to also ask yourself, do I really want to do this?
Yeah. Well, it's one thing to up your game a bit,
Yeah.
and another thing to like go for after that high end service.
Right.
The high end service does, if you really want to have that requires a lot and expense, and you have to have the clients who are willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
Because it does some of it costs
Yes
money.
and no. Some of it costs money and a lot of it doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, this is an area where I see, large businesses put a lot of resources towards this, but small businesses can do an awful lot with very little. In fact, in some ways, they might be able to do a better job in certain instances because they have that more of a personal relationship. They don't have to serve all these people. They just have to serve the people that they work with, their neighbors, or if it's a local
And each
business.
other.
And each other.
And each other. Because if you don't serve each other, it's impossible to serve your client.
Each other meaning within the company.
But it doesn't cost any money to acknowledge someone. Acknowledging people, I mean, maybe a little bit if you wanted to, actually reinforce. And people will say, well, it's their job. Why do I have to tell them if they're doing a good job? It's their job. I'm paying them for that. If you think that, get another thought. Because people want to be acknowledged. They need to be acknowledged. They shine when they're acknowledged. If you want the behavior to continue, you praise it. I mean, so just acknowledgement and noticing someone, because it's the same thing. They noticed me, they cared about me. So that doesn't cost money. You might want to do like a Starbucks card every once in a while, something like that. It'll cost a little bit of money, but nothing compared to losing people and retraining someone and hiring. That's what costs money.
Right.
But keeping your people, that's an investment. So some of that, yeah, you definitely will cost a little bit, but really creating an environment where people feel good about coming to work, I don't think it costs
I think
a lot of money.
entrepreneurs tend to lose as small business owners because we have to focus on turning a profit, right?
Yeah, so does everybody.
Well, yeah, but so when we think in terms of our employees, we tend to think that it's financial reward that is what's most important. And then if we can't do that, if we can't give a big raises or whatever, we figure, well, that's all that they would be meaningful to them. But that's not the case at all.
Not
Study
at
after
all.
study after
Study
study.
after study after study will show that. And the truth is, even in big business too, it doesn't really. It's so similar. I mean, yes, of course you have to turn a profit. That's what you're in business for, is to make money. Otherwise, it's you're in volunteer work. But the thing is, what you focus on. If you focus on what really, really matters to people, which is feeling loved and appreciated and cared for, and that they fit in and that they belong in a place, belonging and, am I okay? That's what people really want. Now, who can afford to pay people a salary that is going to give them a lifestyle that would be enough of a perk to have that be the only thing?
Right.
There's no big business that can afford that. None.
So one of the things I'm always trying to get to is how small businesses can piggyback on the research done by larger businesses,
Yeah.
right? So what are some
Clever.
of the things? Well, they have the bucks and they can spend all
Yeah.
the money, and then we
Yeah.
can look at them and going, well, they're doing this, and based on that, they must have some research.
Yeah.
But in this case, you have some actual direct research that's been done in the luxury hospitality
Yes.
business that might apply.
Yeah, I think that it does. I think there's a couple of things. One is the concept that luxury means not having to think. And I love that idea, because if we applied that to any business, that what we should be helping our customers in every way so like they don't have to think. I just moved, and that's exactly the philosophy that my mover had. You don't worry about it. Let me do all the heavy lifting, literally. And I'm just totally going to take care of it. and you don't have to think. And that's what luxury really means. And if you could be the person that helps other people to be completely stress-free and not have to think, then you're in the luxury business, no matter what business that you're in. And another piece of research that I think is really important and interesting is that what does the luxury consumer really want? What are they looking for? And the first thing is ease. They want it to be easy.
That goes right in with the last thing. Yeah.
Totally does. They want it to be, they want ease, and they want special access. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that that everybody wants a backstage pass to meet Justin Bieber. I mean, that is not what we're talking about, although that's a nice thing. But they're talking about
that's what I want.
Right, exactly. Who doesn't? But but there's special access, and that can even mean access to you. Access to the idea that they're talking to someone who can take care of it for them. So they want access. And then they want a sense of recognition. And that really piggybacks into what we were talking about before. They want to be acknowledged and respected and heard, and they want to feel special. And they want to feel like you care about me. So they want ease, they want access, and they want recognition. I believe that any business, no matter what size, could apply that. And then have it be so that your clients don't even have to think, because we're going to take care of it. I think those are the things that you could take from all of the millions of dollars that have been spent in luxury research, and also the fact that unless you take care of your employees, they won't take care of your clients.
So I know you wanted to touch on culture, because that kind of wraps up all this stuff that we've been talking about in terms of where it all sort of starts, I guess.
Well, it's kind of where it starts. It's where it lives.
Okay.
Where it lives is in the culture of a company. And so many companies have what we call a default culture. Their culture just occurs as a default because they haven't really focused on what they want the culture to be. So of course the people who look at Zappos or Ben & Jerry's or other companies that are well known for their culture, that's what you want to emulate, and you want to look at all of the different facets that create a culture. And if you want to create world-class service, you need to create a culture of service, which requires all of the things that we've been talking about during this session.
Building culture in a small organization. Well, it seems like a large organization thing. How do small businesses go about it, or is it easier in small businesses?
I think it's just as important in a small business as it is in a large business, and I think it's a lot easier in a small business because you don't have to convince a lot of people, you don't have to get a lot of buy-in, you just have to have a few people who are on the same page and who have the same mindset and who believe in the same things and who are willing to actually have their behavior match their beliefs and do whatever it takes to create what they need to do to have a culture of service, if that's what we're talking about today, which is, whatever the culture that they want to have. If they just want to have a total culture of quality and they're not interested in the service surround, then that's fine. You can decide what it is that you want to be, and then how do you get there? And then you make a commitment to doing that, and then you help each other by acknowledging each other when you're doing that. So I think, it's just as important in a small business as it is in a large business. I think it's a whole lot easier in a small business because there's only a few of you.
Right.
And so it's a lot easier to tell if you're not going to work out. See, like what happens, Reese, that's really tricky is that in a large business, when you can have a lot of lip service to this,
right.
But when you have a culture that insists on this and actually holds people accountable to it. The reason I use Four Seasons as an example is because they are willing to say, you don't fit, you can't work here. They're not afraid that, oh my God, I don't have this pulse, I'm never going to be able to open up the hotel. Say, no, you don't fit with our culture. You don't fit with our brand. You're not who we are. Most people self-select from that place. But a lot of other places, they have a lot of lip service to it, but they don't have a willingness to say, I'm going to free up your future so that you can go where you fit.
Right, which is not here.
Which isn't here.
Right.
Because you're not willing to do what it is that we say we stand for. So in a small business, you could weed that out a lot quicker.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. I just want to recap, because you had your 5 things that there's sort of a process. And if you could just recap those real
Sure.
quick for folks.
What do you want me to do? That's your standards. Why do you want me to do it? That's your bottom line business reason. Why do we want you to do it this way? This is who we are. How do you want me to do it? Because if people don't know, we have to teach them. And then, how am I going to know how I'm doing? You have to acknowledge people, and you have to coach people, and you have to let people know what they're doing well and what could be more effective. And then you have to continue to do that to let people know how they can continually grow and get better so that they want to stay with you and not go someplace else where they can grow.
Right. And I suppose if you did all that, you would then have a culture.
Absolutely. That's the foundation of a culture.
So
Yeah.
that all ties right back in. Well, thanks a lot for talking to us.
Okay, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
And Holly's information, if you want to contact her, her contact information is at the bottom of this page, as well as a link to her book. Which one should we put on there?
Well, the Art and Science of the Hotel Concierge. Actually, well, how about putting on the A to Z? If you just go to my website.
Okay.
Thank you very much,
all there?
Inc. You bet.
The link to her website.
Thank you very much, Inc.com.
Thanks.
Yeah.